Good afternoon to all. I'm going to deliberate a little bit about what agrochemicals did to our soil. We know that soil is a complex ecosystem functioning that sustained or that help plants to grow and give our food, and it's a reservoir of nutritional requirement for the entire life and the globe. And there are the diversity in soil. We see the floral diversity and faunal diversity. I'm not getting into details because we already know this. And the key component of agriculture ecosystems, as these soil organisms do nutrient recycling, breakdown of organic compounds, formation of humus, biochemical weathering of minerals, maintaining quality, fertility and stability of soil, and thus the soil dwelling organisms do their best to sustain the production of our food. But what the agrochemical has did to our soil? If you look at the pesticide usage in India, pesticides like insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, and plant growth regulators are used, and a total of 275 products are registered for use in India, and a total of 626 formulations are approved for use in our soils, and more than 95% of them are chemicals. You see the total chemical pesticide consumption in 2014-15, more than 57,000 metric ton technical grade pesticides are used in our agriculture fields. In real, this figure will be bit more or maybe double, because this is a compilation from the ground departments, and they are not actually considering what is actually used. They are just estimating the use. So pesticides, we know they are toxic substances capable of harming all forms of life, and they kill target as well as non-target organisms, and persistence of toxic chemicals in soil is a big problem. Now we see how this pesticide has impacted our soils. There are several studies, and there is one interesting study that is from Delhi or in around Delhi. The study conducted in agriculture areas in Delhi revealed presence of organochlorines, organophosphates, and herbicides in different concentrations. And also a national study by All India Network Project on Pesticide Residues. It's an ICAR process. They are monitoring pesticide residues in commodities and soils. So they found 35 soil samples with pesticide residues and 32 water samples with pesticide residues. So the major problem is the persistence of these chemicals. So they persist for years or maybe thousands of years. So what do these residues or actual pesticides do to the soil fauna and flora? Studies shows that a decrease in bacterial, fungal and actinomycetes populations, as well as soil dehydrogenase activity, and population of nitrifying bacteria in soil treated with fungicide mangosub and dinotamorph was drastically reduced, inhibiting nitrifying bacteria, aerobic nitrogen fixing bacteria and nitrogenous activity. Then the problem is shifting. It caused shift in microbial community structure. And an interesting study, this is a recent study, which shows one of the widely used herbicide Roundup is impacting the life activity of earthworms. So we know earthworms are excellent soil indicators of soil health, and we know and we learned in our primary schools that earthworms are friends of farmers. So this study has showed that glyphosate-based herbicide reduce activity and reproduction of earthworms. And also this herbicide application led to increased soil concentrations of nitrate and phosphate, pointing to the potential risk for nutrient leaching into our water resources. And there is an interesting report from, I got this report from the Bulletin of Indian Society of Soil Science. This is a 2016 report. It says only 1% percentage of the applied pesticides strike the target. The rest 99% is left in the environment, causing much damage to the entire life. And another interesting report is from the International Rice Research Institute, Philippines. In 1987, they reported, the exact sentence is, now acknowledged that pesticide use on rice was a waste of effort and mistake in 1987. So they also said in that report that farmers in Philippines, Vietnam, India, Bangladesh are producing a higher crop of rice without using pesticides. But the reality we see in India, 40 pesticides are recommended for use in paddy alone, and out of which 26 are highly hazardous. The question is, are we feeding on safe life? Then coming to the fertilizers used in India, there are so many fertilizers like nitrogenous fertilizers, phosphate fertilizers and complex fertilizers, and during the year 2012 and 30, 25,500 plus metric tons of fertilizers are used in our fields. The problem is manufacturers enjoy huge subsidy, but farmers live in distress. We know that more than 3 lakh farmers have committed suicide in the last 15 years in India. So there are also some reports how fertilizers impact the soil health. So the biochemical properties of the soil is affected. The studies shows that lower enzyme activities were observed in inorganically fertilized soil than organically fertilized soils. Activities of soil enzymes like dehydrogenase, beta glucosidases, alkaline phosphatase, etc. are impacted, and changes in soil organic carbon, nitrogen content, pH, moisture, etc. are noted due to continuous application of NPK fertilizers. The issue is soil biota adversely affected by interaction of inputs and practices in chemical intensive agriculture. I already mentioned there are more than 600 formulations of pesticides are used, and a farmer is using not a single one, they are using a cocktail. So what is the multitude of impact these cocktails of pesticides are causing to the soil is the concern. So this like a fragile soil ecosystem has been stressed. They turned soil biologically less active, turned soil into a reservoir of hazardous chemicals instead of reservoir of nutrients. And then they are contributing to polluting our water resources. So the soil degradation, we can see the issues like physical loss of soil, reduced organic matter, reduced water holding capacity, soil acidification, chemical contamination, declining soil biodiversity, declining soil biological activity. Now, what is the concern for our food production? So soil devoid of nutrients required for sustaining plant health and productivity. Yesterday we saw a couple of presentations that showed the lack of micronutrients in our food produce. Then diminishing productivity, declining nutrient quality of soil, deteriorating nutritional quality of produce, chemical contamination of food. And what is the cost of chemical contamination of food? I'll talk in the next slide. So this is the status of All India Network Project on Pesticide Residues. The result shows that 18.7% of samples analyzed in 2015 showed presence of pesticide residues, but in 2010 and 11 the residues was found in only 6.8% samples. So nearly thrice the 3 times we see in 2015. So coming to the toxic burden of pesticides used in India, we did an analysis of based on the pesticides registered for use in India, and we found that 81 pesticides are endocrine disruptors, potential to interrupt with the hormonal activity. Then 56 pesticides are carcinogenic, 38 are immunotoxic, and 29 pesticides are reported to contaminate the developing fetus in scientific literature, and 21 reported in breast milk. We are feeding poison to our babies. So the multitude of pesticide residues or pesticides can be observed as outcomes in this form. The health impact of pesticides ranging from immunotoxicity, respiratory symptoms, acute health effects, neurotoxicity, carcinogenicity, hormone disruption, reproductive impacts, developmental toxicity, prenatal origins of endocrine disruption. Due to lack of time, I am not getting into details, but most of you, I hope you would know this, otherwise you can get back to me. Now, as I said, the first meal of the baby, breast milk, is contaminated with pesticides. And even before birth, babies are exposed to pesticides. What will be the cost? Diminishing mental and physiological growth, resistance, all are, we have been seeing these kind of things across India. I'm not getting into detail. Now, coming to the subsidy, already Ravindra sir was just mentioned about it. You see in the first figure, 2014-15, 75,000 plus crores of rupees were spent on fertilizer subsidy. This is not paid to farmers. These are gone into the pockets of manufacturers. And regarding the pesticides also, subsidies are there, but it's operate in a different way. State governments or agriculture department procure pesticides from manufacturers, and they either freely distribute to farmers or give them on a subsidized rate. So all these subsidies are actually enhancing farmers to use more and more because it is free of cost. And this is a report recently I noted. Agri-input companies show profit despite farmers' distress. The question is, more distress to farmers, more profit. I don't know. So aggregate revenues of agrochemical producers were up 12% during April-September 16-17 financial year compared with the previous year. And if you look at the list tracking numbers in percentage, most of them are pesticide manufacturing companies. So what are the alternatives and opportunities? Many of you, I don't know whether you are aware about a report known as International Assessment of Agriculture, Science and Technology for Development, Agriculture at Crossroads. This is an intergovernmental panel report produced by World Bank, Food and Agriculture Organization, World Health Organization and UNDP. This report brought out in 2009. The report says there is the urgent need to move away from destructive and chemical dependent industrial agriculture and to adopt environmental modern farming methods that champion biodiversity and benefit local communities. Such techniques as genetic engineering are no solution for soaring food prices, hunger and poverty. There is another report by Oliver D. Schutter, who was the special rapporteur on the right to food, Human Rights Council of UN. He brought a report in 2011, the report known as Agroecology Report. This is a 4-page report. In that he said, agroecological approach raises productivity at field level, reduces rural poverty, contributes to improving nutrition, contributes to adapting to climate change. The progress of agroecology, the term agroecology was quoted in 1928 by Czech agronomist. Then after publishing The Silent Spring of Rachel Carson, in her last chapter, she said the other road possible. She didn't mention what it is. But now we realize the other road is agroecology. So in 2009, the IASTD report was there. 2011, Oliver D. Schutter brought his agroecology report in UN Council. In 2013, Stockholm Convention came up and recommended alternatives to endosulfan. At that time, endosulfan was the burning issue and it got banned globally there. So in 2004, we find FAO's first international symposium on agroecology happened, and in 2015, the International Conference on Chemical Management supported the adoption of agroecological practices to phase out highly hazardous pesticides. And if you go to the website of FAO, you can see there is an agroecology knowledge hub giving so many videos and resources on agroecological practices from small scale farmers. So agroecology, I'm not getting into the details. So what we have to do at a national level, anyway, a paradigm shift is needed, a change in attitude, approach and thinking, policy and practice. So initially I think we need to stop wastage of public money given as subsidies to agrochemical companies, and we need to adopt and popularize agroecology. So there should be a phase out strategy, and in 3 or 4 years we need to get converted into agroecology. It cannot be done on an instance. And we need to restructure the institutional support to take forward agroecology. I don't know how it should be done, but anyway, it should be done. And I conclude with the remarks from the Minister for Agriculture, Agri-Food and Forestry, France. He said, above all, I think agroecology is a mindset, a desire to do better, a form of optimism and trust in both our natural resources and our intelligence as human beings. Agroecology is an investment in future. It also provides a means for meeting the needs of society as a whole. And I would like to thank the organizers for providing me the opportunity to be part of this important event. Thank you so much.
So may I now invite Mr. Gopal Krishna from Toxic Hush.
My question is directed to Dileep. You talked about the pesticide toxicity. You talked about the organochlorine, which are present in the vegetables which were tested in Delhi. Was it like that, right? So what I am looking, I was going through some lab testing done of some bio pesticides which are available with the farmer. They're using it. They're very costly, and I could find eldrin in those pesticides. So eldrin is banned in 1975 by United Nations. It's completely banned for import, production, and uses in India. But then I don't know how it is coming to the farms. That's the biggest question which, as a house, we need to address it.
Can you be short?
I'm trying to write a paper in that. So how we are going to, ban is, trying to question these type of malpractices happening in the field. And farmers are really affected by that. It's highly lethal. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. I think the issue that you have raised is very well. The problem is there was a study that from Delhi last year that showed banned pesticide in agriculture commodities produce. The problem is, I said in my presentation, pesticides are persistent in soil for a longer period. So maybe the specific issue that you brought in about the eldrin, maybe that came from the raw material that the manufacturer of the company used for making a biopesticide. There is one possibility. Another possibility is using contaminated water. So this is there. And also there is another possibility, something like that, old bottle in new, so old wine in new bottle. It happens.
It's happening.
Yeah, it is happening. Yeah, it's happening.
Even DDT is available.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is available. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be that case. And
Microbes is banned.
I think it answered for your question. And now for your sir, PAN is working with the farming communities, and we don't see to exactly bring some substitutes for chemical pesticides. Instead, we would like to engage community with self-help groups of women to produce locally available materials, to use locally available materials to produce pest repellents, not pesticides. There are so many herbal species that are having the resistance. So we help them to build in such things and make available in within the farm itself. So that is we are looking at, and we are in Kerala we are working with nearly 300 farmers.
Okay. Thank you. So the key messages that I take from, pardon? Yeah.